Hello and welcome to Mum's Work and Chaos. We all know the saying, it takes a village to raise a child, but where is that village? Well, I started this podcast to help you find yours, and I'm joined by some amazing guests this season, talking about subjects such as fast fashion, menopause, sex education and teenage behaviour, just to name a few. So join me this season and I hope you enjoy this episode. Hello and welcome to this episode of Mum's Work and Chaos with me, Louise. Today I am joined by the wonderful Eve Bent, who is the author of this book here, No Labels Here. And it's just a fantastic book. She describes it here as a day-to-day guide for parenting children with neurodiverse needs. And honestly, it is. I'm using it myself for my eldest daughter, who was diagnosed with ADHD back just before Christmas. And the way the format is with the contents, you can literally just go to any chapter and it will give you the answers you need. So thank you so much, Eve. Welcome.
Hi, well, nice to be here.
Great.
Thank you for having me.
Anytime, honestly. We've had a lovely conversation just before we hit record as well. And I think we could definitely say we're getting on like a house on fire, which is lovely. But I mean, I know how this book came about because I've read the introduction to your book. But for my listeners who don't know about the book yet, please tell us a bit more about the book and how it came about.
Yeah, of course. So, my name's Eve, obviously, and I have 4 children who all have neurodiverse needs, and that ranges between ADHD, autism, dyslexia, dyscalculia, because neurodiverse just means a different way of thinking, a different way of your brain working. And so through raising these between sort of 4 and 17 years, my children range, we've sort of come across a lot of challenges, a lot of hurdles that we've had to sort of navigate. But simultaneously to doing that, I've also sort of worked in childcare, done my education degree, and then retrained as a psychology, specialising in neurodevelopmental research. So I did research with autistic children. Um, and and so I got to a point where I thought I want to help people, but I want to do it in the most sort of easy way for them to access. So between my own personal experiences and the sort of knowledge I have from the psychology background of why they're doing certain behaviours, I wanted to put the two together to try and help people understand the challenges that they're going through. And most importantly, some of the things that we've tried. And as you've read, some work and some don't. And to do that in a way that is really understanding of parents, that don't worry, you're trying everything. If it works, it's great that it works. If it doesn't, try something different. And sometimes it will work at one point in their development and then it won't work later on. And that's okay too, and to sort of be acknowledging that everybody's just trying their best, really.
I think that's the thing as well, is that although you might find that some children, they're labelled the same way, my nephew is going through the diagnosis process for ADHD right now. My daughter has ADHD, yet she responds incredibly well to a sticker chart and he does not.
Yeah.
Like sticker charts could mean absolutely nothing to him. Whereas she...
And that's quite common in ADHD as well.
Exactly. And it's just incredible. Like, I while going through our process of getting her diagnosed, I haven't been diagnosed myself. It could take me another 4.5 years to get a diagnosis through the NHS, and I'm 37 now. So it could be that I'm waiting till my early 40s to find out for definite whether I have ADHD. But looking at her and the way she is, I see so much of myself in her. It's incredible. But equally, I feel like there's some tendencies that we both have that could mean that we're more on the joint autistic ADHD spectrum side of things. Like she likes to have a very clean bedroom. She will tidy her bedroom, she'll make her bed, yet everything is stuffed in a drawer. There's no order to the drawers. Everything's stuffed in there. You can never find anything. There's no
Oh,
organisation
bless her.
there, but
But I
everything's
suppose to
tidy.
her in the room, like I'm very similar. Sort of my ADHD profile is I need it clear because if it's messy, my mind feels messy and I can't settle.
Yeah,
So I suppose if it's all out of sight, at least then she can sort of say, well, it is
yeah,
clear. I can
but
focus a bit. There's not as many distractions out.
yeah.
And then I can deal with the chaos later when I
Later,
open a drawer.
this is the thing. So I have doom piles everywhere. If I could move my camera to show you, I've got like two piles next to me of paperwork that needs dealing with, things that need looking at. I've got a pile of notebooks, and all four of them have been used, but none of them are finished.
Not full.
Yeah, no, none of them are full.
I, to be fair, I love notebooks.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
always doing them.
Well, I also have the Mum's Work and Chaos book of
Oh
lists,
wow,
and use them quite
that's
regularly
amazing.
to organize my life. But and then I've got like a weird set of labels that I don't actually need right now. My glasses cleaner, and of course a needle
Oh, I've got one
inspector.
of
You
them on
never
mine.
know when you need one of them, and it's just chaos. But
Okay,
if I
I'm
put
living with Lego on the desk. Don't worry.
And the thing is, if you put it away, if I put all this stuff away, I'll forget that I have to do it.
Yeah.
I'll forget that it exists. And so I end up with the doom pile on top of the microwave of all the bits of paper I need to remember to take to school and stuff like that
Yes.
as well. And it's just
Yeah.
but it drives my husband absolutely crazy. And so what he'll do is he'll take the doom pile off the top of the microwave and he'll put it in the cack drawer. And so
And then it's out of sight, out of
out of
mind.
sight, out of mind. So I have
Yeah.
this theory that we both have ADHD, but his is very much he wants it clear, out of sight,
Yeah.
out of mind. Whereas I need to see the things to know they exist because I feel
Yeah.
like I have, object permanence issues.
Yes. I'm the same. I need it out to be able to remember it.
Yeah.
Thankfully, my husband got diagnosed as autistic a couple of years ago,
There you
and
go.
so he doesn't really put things away at all. He is one of these where he gets something out and does what he needs to do with it, and then moves on, and then it's completely forgotten about that thing is. So that's fine. Everything's out, and I can just put away what I need to.
I was doom scrolling Instagram a while ago, and something that really made me laugh was this woman was like, something that's really helped me with my ADHD is my new mantra. And I was like, right, okay, what's the mantra? And she said, don't put it down, put it away. Don't put it down, put it away. And I was like, what is this witchcraft? And so for a day I tried it and my house was tidy and I knew where everything was. And I was like, twice I've not heard this before. Don't put it down, put it away. Because I have a real habit of like, I'll just, when I'm finished with something, I'll put it down and it's there now.
Yep.
That's where it
Yep.
lives. It's not going away anywhere.
Completely forgotten.
And so it's just really funny.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, this mantra's good. And then, of
It
course, I forgot
works.
it the
Yeah.
next day.
I was
By
going to say it's
midnight,
not
the
sustainable though,
reset
is
had
it?
happened. It gone away. But one of the things that I absolutely love about your book is like, I mean, you've got the introduction which explains more about you and your children, your family, and everything, and just the journey that you've been on to get where you are, like now being trained in like in psychology and everything, and actually doing your research in neurodiversity itself, which is just incredible. You actually went to university, it wasn't for you, which it wasn't
No.
for me either. And somehow I went to uni to prove someone wrong. And my complete and utter stubbornness and need to prove this person wrong that I could actually do something and get a degree,
Oh no.
and that I
And
meant
you
I
won.
completed uni. I won. He doesn't know
Yeah.
that, but I won. That's all that
Yeah.
matters.
You know it. Yeah.
But like you I think it's brilliant that you did do everything that you did. So you left uni,
Yeah.
you joined a nursery, didn't you? And
I
you
did,
worked
yeah.
your way
So
up to manager.
when I first went to university, I went and I at sort of 17, you don't really know what you want to do. And I'm an August baby, so I was the youngest in the year. Wasn't 18 till just before starting uni. And I knew I wanted to work with children. I knew I wanted to help in some way. So I went and I joined social work with children course at Manchester. And the course was brilliant, but it was a term in. And at that time, we're talking the early 2000s, there wasn't the knowledge, there wasn't the support. I had one form tutor who you could never get hold of. And I tried explaining that I wasn't coping, and he was sort of in his late 70s and was just like, oh, well, these are your books, read them all. And it was like a stack this big, and I'm dyslexic, and it was just so overwhelming. And I thought you had to
Yeah,
read back to cover on every book. I didn't know you could skim. It never occurred to me you could skim through and get the bits of information you need. And it was just too overwhelming. So I did, I left that, which was a hard decision at the time because in my family, you went to uni. We all went to uni.
yeah,
But then I started working in nurseries, and that's where, again, I wanted to work with children. I wanted to help them. And I really, really loved it. I loved it. I'm obsessed. And so I did a second, I completed my first full sort of degree in children's learning and development while I was working. And at the time, I had my daughter when I was 19 and my second daughter at 21.
yeah.
So two little university of an evening, work in the day, and just sort of plowed through that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing. Like I find myself that I get bored if I'm just doing one thing. And so at one point I had
It's the ADHD.
at one point I had my own marketing agency, and my clients ranged from a huge cybersecurity company to a little double glazing company to doing paid ads for like a jewelers, for oh God, what did they do? A paving company and some other things as well. I did a whole summer season doing the PR for a dance company for their summer shows, and it I loved that variety. I needed that
Yeah.
stimulation, and so and also it being an agency, it meant that we were doing like social media, we were doing emails, we were doing all sorts of different things, and again like just even changing up the delivery method of getting the
Yeah.
information out helped as well. And so I really enjoyed that. And then when I started working full time for the company that I'm at now, about 6 months in, I started the podcast.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I record around lunch times in evenings. I edit in the evenings when the kids are asleep, and stuff. But it's that stimulation. You're searching for something, and I want to be helpful,
Yes.
and this is my way of being helpful to people as well. And I think that's the amazing thing about your book as well. Like you were saying, it's taken you like 3 years to get to pull this together and
Yeah.
and find the right format for people
Yeah. To be fully truthful, most of it was written in my daughter's gymnastics class because you've got school runs and work in the day, and then she would go to gymnastics for like 2 hours
oh
3 times a week. And so I would take her there, I would get a coffee, put my head and that was the only time I would have to write. And it
yeah
was just you're just juggling everything, especially like the four of them. Like they've all got different hobbies and interests and being nipped here, there, and so yeah, it was a long 3 years trying
yeah
to
I
fit it
mean
all in.
I've got I've got 3 kids. My eldest is 8, my middle one's 4 and starting school in September, and then my youngest is 2, 2.5,
Wow.
and she's at nursery with my middle one. And there's actually only 19 months between the two of them.
That's my two daughters are 19 months. It's hard.
It's hard,
Yeah.
really hard. But they, but even the middle one has a better social life than me.
She gets
Oh,
invited
yeah.
to parties and all sorts. And I'm like,
Parties every weekend.
yeah,
Yeah,
I've got a bloody taxi drive everyone everywhere. It's crazy.
that's it.
But
Yeah.
I think the thing with me is like, I'm very much like you. Like I was really lucky in that I went to college instead of staying at sixth form. And at college, I wasn't spoon fed as much as a lot of my friends who'd stayed in sixth form at school.
Yeah.
And so it was very much like I had that sort of like pre-uni experience. It was very similar. It was my responsibility to turn up to classes. I didn't have to be there every day. Like there were some days where I didn't have any lessons and I wouldn't go in because there was no point me getting the bus and wasting that bus fare going to college. And so I had to learn to research, and we actually had one lesson where they taught us how to research everything effectively, and also like using a content and an index to find things you're looking
what you need.
And so I got really good at research, and I got really good at cutting corners to find the things that I need. Like if I'm doing research for work, I know where Control F is. I know the keywords I'm looking for in that white paper. I don't need to read the whole thing. I just need to find that section and learn
those
that
words.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's one of the reasons why I love the way your content is set out. The book isn't meant to be read from cover to cover. You can
not at all, no.
go in and out. And so, like, you know, the first chapter is Good Morning, all about morning routines and getting ready and everything. Clothes and self-care is the next one. You've got school, nursery, and after school and nursery, which is just fantastic. Food, downtime, days out and going to new places, bedtime and nighttime, and finally looking after yourself, because that's a huge thing. Like, I really struggle with that because I feel like my looking after myself sometimes is
it comes last,
or doing the podcast and stuff like that, and really it's not. I need that time to just myself.
And we need to stop encouraging mothers that going for a shower is self-care. It's not. That's a basic need that everybody should be entitled to. Self-care would be going to the salon and having your nails done, or I like to go to the gym, so going to the gym for an hour for me is really nice. Just having my headphones on, blocking everybody out, and just going in for an hour. That's self-care. Going for a shower, going to Asda alone, they're not self-care.
100%. I recently did a podcast with a self-care and motherhood coach called Emma Benyon, and she was brilliant, and we were talking all about what self-care means and things as well, and how, you know, it's not putting on a load of laundry while listening to your podcast and things like that as well. It's also, you know, if it is going for a walk, then that's great, but do it for you. Don't do it because the dog needs a walk. You know?
Yes,
and all
exactly.
that and which is just fantastic. But I mean, like, the chapters that I've really sort of delved into myself that I've been struggling with a lot is like getting up and ready in the morning. My middle one seems to be having some problems with like sensory issues with clothes as well at the moment, and the way fabrics feel, and she's also, which is a real pain in the ass for me because it's costing me money, she's also started to rip holes in her trousers on purpose.
Oh no.
Very frustrating. Anytime she has a fork, it's a problem.
Straight through. Oh wow.
She's got really into piercing her trousers. And also at bedtime at the moment with my eldest has become a bit of an issue as well. So they're the chapters that I've been specifically looking at for myself, because bedtime with my eldest, she's sort of regressed back to, you know, the wonderful 3-year-old stage of, Mummy, one more thing before you leave. All of a sudden,
can I just have a drink? Can I just have this?
So we have a routine in that they're in their pajamas by 7, got their brushed teeth, got their cups of drink and stuff by 7:30. upstairs by 7:30, so all of that sort of bit, so that we can have bedtime stories and reading time and stuff before bed to wind down and get
calm down.
And then because the littles want to have their bedtime stories, she's not interested in those Peppa Pig stories anymore. She wants to go off and do her own thing. And so she tries to sneak back down to watch
it's hard because you can't split yourself in two, can you, to do both? So it's like, well, do you do one and then the other? And when your older one's being read to, what are the little ones doing? Are they going to kick off? And then
that's the thing.
It is hard.
It's so hard. And my husband, we found that only one of us can do bedtime, because if we're both up there at the same time, they go that it's even more trouble. So I really so if he's reading the littles and I'm with the big one, then the littles come hunting for me. Or if he's with her, then they go hunting for him. Or my youngest is really into daddy at the moment. She only wants him to read the bedtime story. So if I'm doing it, it's a problem. And it's all this whole thing. And so it's just easy, just one of us. But he is he's a lot stricter than me. And so like if my eldest has got into reading proper thick chapter books, and she's now sort of like moving like YA kind of stuff. She's reading this book called Glassborn, and it's a great book, but it's like really adventurous, and it's because of the way she can imagine things in her
winding
head,
her up.
She's there, she's in it, and so she's like, I can't read this without you in the room. And I'm like, why not? You can, you know all the words and everything. And she's like, yeah, but then I get nervous, and I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen next. And I'm like, well, you do, because your pattern recognition is just off the charts. And you told me already that they were going to find the key, and that this fairy had a wolf, and this, that, and the other. And she's like, well, I knew what was going to happen, but it was like the anticipation, the waiting for it to happen.
Would it happen?
And she's just off the charts with it. Like anything to do with like, the next bit in the plot, she already knows what's going to happen. But I think that winds her up more. And so she's like, at the moment they're telling the same like incident from 3 different perspectives across 3 different characters. And so because she's now on the 3rd chapter of the 3rd person, she knows what's going to happen.
She knows the events,
But she's like, it's getting there, and she's nervous. And so she's done a Joey from Friends. Instead of putting the book in the freezer, she's put the book in the back of the drawer, because she can't possibly read it without me there. And so now she's getting
it's the Shining all over again.
Yeah, she's getting frustrated with me because I can't sit there until 9 o'clock at night while she reads this flipping book anymore. It's like, I love the book, I love her, but but then I start getting panicky about like, I need to do more laundry. I have to get the kitchen tidy, or my husband's tidying the kitchen and he's making a racket. And I'm like, oh my God, I just need to get these things done. And then I end up getting
and try and get a sensible bedtime at the same time, because it all has to start again at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning.
And this is the thing. And then the littles don't get home until 5:30 from nursery, and they want a full dinner with everyone else, but then they don't actually want a full dinner, because they'd much rather eat biscuits. Because they've eaten dinner at nursery. They had dinner at 4:30 at nursery. It's just like, oh my gosh.
My youngest does that when he goes to a childminder because he's at school now. In the half terms, he goes to a childminder, and she feeds him these wonderful big dinners, and he'll actually eat them with her or eat them with me. But great, he's at a full dinner, and then he'll come back and we'll be making dinner, and he'll be like, where's mine? I want some. And I'm like, you've just eaten. Because everyone else has got some.
Well, this is the thing. My eldest, before we had the others, there's a 4-year age gap between her and my middle one. And so like we had a very different routine. I was running my own business, so I didn't have to start until when I dictated I started work. My husband didn't leave until 10 o'clock in the morning, because he didn't want to hit the traffic when he was going to work. And so she wouldn't go to nursery until like 10:30 in the morning.
Yeah, so
And
much more relaxed.
Yeah, and we wouldn't
Yeah.
then collect her until about 6:30, because if she missed the biscuit at the end of the day, there was hell to pay. And my biscuits
Kids
in
are
my
great.
car were not the one. Like, no,
No.
I could have the same rich tea biscuits, and
Yeah, it's
it
not
would
the same.
no, because it's in the car
No.
and it's not at nursery with Shaloa, and therefore it was my fault. And so, you know, it's all those things, isn't it? They get into this routine, they get to understand that this is how things happen. And so when we then had to migrate her from the nursery routine to the school routine of we have to get out earlier, there was a whole shift in our family of how we do things,
Yeah.
get out on time and all the other stuff. And then we had a brand new baby who was born in April lockdown. Us that started school the September of 2020. So we had the brand new baby, we had the starting.
And that wasn't a
in
regular start to
lockdown.
school either in that September, was it? It was very, very different. I know my second, she went from year 6 to year 7 in that September, and they had a very strange start to secondary school. You know, they didn't move around, they didn't do anything, there was no aircon, they weren't allowed windows open, they were just in one room all day. And the teachers would come to them, and I think those years have really affected the children that have started. Like even nursery children, like it wouldn't have been nursery and reception, it wouldn't have been the same kind of large group, you know, play-based learning environment that we would typically have now or before. It's
really
it's a lot of change.
And we my middle one didn't start nursery until like later on either. So my eldest, she was I think 17 months when she started nursery. I think Indy was about 9, maybe she was about 18 months when she started nursery. And then my youngest, she was a year old when she started.
Right.
Yeah, but only because, you know, I was working full time, and I'd actually been working with her at home and everything as well. And it just got to that point where it was like, this is too much. I need
it's hard.
Space. Like when they start walking and stuff as well, it makes me think so much older.
I went back to work when Teddy was born, my youngest, in August 2019, and I went back to work in the January of 2020. It was only like part-time teaching at the university. So he went to the childminders from then. Thankfully the childminders had all the others, and it's my best friend as well. So it's, you know, I knew he was in very safe hands being so young. But then in March we hit lockdown. So then I had a 7-month-old and a job, which then at the time changed to him and remote. And I've got this little one army crawling. And it was just it was more difficult than I can even put words.
Well, yeah,
it was
we were having to homeschool.
I would never want to go back to that.
No, we were having to homeschool our eldest because we'd gone into lockdown. Like she'd had a sort of normal start to school, and then we went into lockdown over that Christmas, so she didn't go back until like the summer term. So we had like a whole term of her at home. We were homeschooling her. I was working part-time. I had Indy at home as well, my middle one, and she just like was starting to pull herself up on furniture.
So you've got to have eyes in the back of your head at that point, haven't you?
And my desk was the ironing board in the living room. I had the ironing board set up with my laptop and everything on so that she couldn't get to it because it was too high. So I had my standing desk, which was my ironing board. But seriously, guys, if you are looking for a standing desk, I would 100% recommend the Minky ironing board from Asda. It's very stable. It's £25, not 250, not over £250 like most standing desks are. And it was a good idea to adjust. But
When you
yeah,
want to sit down, just lower it.
yeah. So what I do is when she'd go for a nap, I'd lower it to sofa level so I could sit there on the sofa and carry on.
Oh, I can't tell you the amount of meetings during lockdown where I'd have to go upstairs and sit on my bed and then put like a box on my bed and then, or just a bag or something, and then rest my laptop on it. And I'm like trying to make a professional background. Meanwhile, I've got like 4 kids at home.
My
It's just
boss
madness.
used to have to go and do things like that as well, and she'd call. She'd be like, right, I'm off to my soft office now. My bed is my soft office.
That's a good name for it, actually. I'm going to call it that.
It's so funny. But yeah, no, it's just, it was so, the challenges we all faced during that time was hard enough as it is.
Yeah.
But now as well, I'm trying to like advocate for her at school and things as well. And it's really, it's that painful time of going through that, you know, she's starting to transition from being this little happy-go-lucky kid to, you know, the hormones are all starting to kick in. She's 8. They're all starting to get, you know, the girl groups are starting to fracture away from each other, and
girls are very hard to manage with all that, with the friendships and the falling out, and yeah, it's very, very tricky.
Yeah, and
we used to say our eldest was hormonal before she was hormonal. So from about 7, she would just be high, she would be low. You just couldn't keep her on an even keel.
yeah,
and then she went through. Sorry, go on.
No, you go.
She went through a SATs, and she was just this monster of a child for months. I'd say from about the January to the SATs in May, and then literally the week after, gone.
Yeah.
All the stress was gone off her. But we didn't find out she has autism and ADHD until she was 14. So looking back now, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, it was overload, it was overwhelm, you know, it was, and you can put it all into pieces when you see it back. But at the time, we just thought, oh my God, she's so hormonal. We've got 10 years of this yet.
This is the thing. My daughter was really all over the shop last week, and we had a meeting with the school, which took a long time for us to get, to talk about how we could support her better and the possibility of a 1 plan. You know, the stage before, well, in Essex we call it a 1 plan, but it's a special educational plan, which is essentially like the step before an EHCP. They don't think she needs one. She's perfect at school, but she masks so bloody well. But she receives speech.
And what would be the harm in providing one?
Exactly. So I took it upon myself to look at their SEND policy, to then go onto the Essex County Council website and download the 1 plan template, to then write my own very basic at two sides of A4 1 plan that not only said what we thought could be done at school, but also what we could be doing better at home, so that it wasn't a this is all your fault that she's dysregulated at home thing. But then I also found out on Friday that they'd been doing their SATs, their year 3 SATs, which they don't tell us parents about, because they don't want us to then force them to revise more and provide more. You know,
and they're not, year 3 SATs aren't mandatory anymore, are they?
No.
They're just
been doing their year 3 SATs, and she said, oh, she told me on Friday, oh, we've been doing SATs tests, and I was like, what? Okay, so this is why you've been an absolute pain in the arse, because again, like you, they've been told that they're doing tests, that they're being monitored and regulated at school, and therefore she's extra tense at school, and then she's bringing all of that home because she's not allowed to express it at school.
And it's such a dangerous narrative that schools use, and there's so much campaigning to try and get them not to use it, that it is a problem at home because the behavior is at home, and that they're fine in school. And it's completely the opposite. It is actually, when they are at home, they are with people they trust and people that they know, if they be their true selves, they're not going to get in trouble, or they're not going to get berated or, told you can't act like that, they're going to get loved. And when they go to school, they have to follow a strict routine, and they know that if they were to be themselves and show their distress, they will get put in high schools. They put them in something called IE, internal exclusion, and it's just barbaric. In primary, they give them detentions. They keep them. Oh, my son, before he went to specialist school, he would be kept in every single break and dinner because he couldn't finish his work in time, and he would be kept in to do it. And it's because he has hypermobility in his hands, and he can't. And now he has a scribe at school to do all his writing, and he's top of the class.
So my eldest in year 1, her teacher brought up that she couldn't pay attention. She was really struggling to keep attention. Her attention span was really short, and really struggling to concentrate. And I was like, okay. And we started looking into what ADHD looked like for my nephew.
Right.
And in that, I then started to explore more about what ADHD looked like in girls, because I was like, that sounds like me. That sounds like me. And I was like, hang on a sec, that sounds like her. And then and then I brought up with her teacher in year 2, the same teacher she had in year 1, do you think that she has ADHD? And she was like, oh no, it's not a behavioural issue. And I said, ADHD isn't a behavioural issue. ADHD is, do you know what ADHD is? And she was like, well, yeah, it's attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And I was like, yes. I said, but it's really deceptive now, because it's not that she has a deficit of attention. She has too much attention. She doesn't know where to place it. And so she could be, you've told her to pay attention to this book and read this book. That's great. She's reading this book. But so-and-so is having a conversation over there, and she can hear that conversation at the same time. And then she's like, oh, but I know the answer to that.
Yeah.
It's this, blah, 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 blah. And then she's involved in the conversation, because she's got this, it's not a deficit of attention, it's too much attention. She doesn't know where to put it.
She can't place it.
Exactly. And so I was trying to explain this to her, and she was like, oh, well, you're more than welcome to go to the GP to get that looked at, but it's not a problem at school. Right, okay. So
when the year before she'd said it was a problem.
Yeah, exactly. And so we tried charts and things at school as well to try and help, but it didn't. It actually, but the problem was, it was the teacher's suggestion that we try charts to help, like sticker charts. But then she wasn't implementing them in the class. So I was providing these charts, but nothing was being done with them. And then we went through the whole trying to get her speech therapy sorted out, because she'd been flagged when she was at nursery for having speech and language difficulties. And we finally got that through. But everything has taken so long. It's been such a struggle. It's been really hard, because she is bright and she is clever, and people like her. And because of all this, people don't then see that she's struggling, because she
that's how it masks a lot in specifically girls, because ADHD in girls can often come across as being very chatty and sociable, because they have all this going on in their head, and they chat. And it can only be when they get into their teens and early 20s that can sort of be noticed as, oh, actually, this is ADHD. And that's why you get so many teens being diagnosed now, female teens.
Yeah.
Because when they're young, they go, oh, but they're happy, they're chatty, they've got friends, and they're bright. Having autism and having ADHD do not mean a child cannot be intelligent. They can be bright. There are so many children with neurodiverse needs are very, very bright. They just have struggles in other areas. That doesn't make them less autistic or less ADHD. And it baffles me. But teachers in the UK, I think it was only about 3 or 4 years ago that SEN training was put into the teaching syllabus when they learn to be teachers. So unless they've done supplementary courses, many of them have no knowledge of SEN needs. when they go into teaching. So
Yeah.
all they know is what they see in the classroom, and that's it, or what the Senko passes on. So it can often depend if the Senko is a good one or not. Which is, look at the draw, really, isn't it?
It's really difficult. It's so hard. And you're right, it is luck of the draw when it comes to Senkos. Like, our Senko is lovely, but she works 3 days a week. And there's a lot of
Yes.
children within that within the school who have
Yeah.
SEN needs or fairly complex SEN needs as well.
Yeah.
And so, unfortunately, she's doing the best she can with what she's got.
Yeah.
And
This is what we had at my son's old school, a part-time Senko 3 days a week, and she was lovely and she tried her best, but she was also deputy head. So she had all these hats to
yeah,
try and get everything done, and it was a two-form school, so 60 children intake every year all the way up.
yeah.
It's just too overwhelming. It needs to be one person full-time focusing on those SEN needs.
Well, my daughter's at a wonderful entry C of E school, but it's a little tiny village school. And they rely quite heavily on the funding of the diocese as well. And so
Right.
again, it's quite difficult. Like with there's been quite a staff turnaround as well in the last couple of months as well. And so trying to navigate all of that is quite difficult. And also the fact that she's gone from having a teacher who said for 2 years in a row who said that she had difficulties concentrating and so on, to a teacher who thinks that her concentration is perfectly fine and isn't seeing it is quite it's very interesting the way people perceive the same person as well.
Yeah, and it can be quite often that she's just not seeing it, not that it's not happening. My son was very bright. He would sit quietly. He doesn't like to ask for help. Even now in his specialist school, they've learned to know his sort of body and facial expressions to know when he's struggling, and they have to go to him. And they can do that because he's in a class of 8. When he was in a class of 30, he would just sit there and struggle and not tell them he needed his ear defenders or that he needed a break and to go for a walk or he couldn't do the work. And they go, oh, he's fine. He's just quiet in class. He's lovely. And you're like, oh, yeah, but then he comes out and he tells me how upset he was all day. And he's not fine in class. He's just not willing to confide in you.
Yeah, I think that's some of the problem as well, is trying to get your child to express themselves to people that they don't know as well as you. And so like if she's struggling at home, she'll tell me, oh, Indy's being too noisy, or oh, I can't concentrate because of this, or I just want to watch what I want to watch for a bit. And so it can be quite tricky even at home. However, when you're trying to get her to then express herself to maybe teachers that she's not 100% happy with, or doesn't feel like she's going to be listened to, or have her needs validated or met, it's quite difficult. And so like I've said to her before, well, why didn't you tell him you felt like that? Oh, because I didn't think he'd let me go for a walk.
Yeah.
Or, like, oh, were you feeling overwhelmed? Yes. Well, why didn't you tell Mrs. Bryant this? Oh, I just, I didn't know how to
it's
say
exactly the same as Sam.
And so we started to practice conversations as well, to try and help her to express herself.
Give her those tools to be able to say it. Yeah.
Well, pretend I'm so and so. How would you tell me this now? Like, knowing what you know and the fact that they're busy and they've got 29 other children to look after in the classroom, how do you express your needs better? Maybe try saying this. And then she'd come out of school and be like, oh, actually that worked. I understood what I was asking and blah blah blah. And it's sometimes they just need that sort of role play to then
you're scaffolding the sort of communication to be able to say it. One thing that worked with us was Sam had little red and green cards on his desk And if he was struggling, he could just slide the red one forward. So, but it relies on the teacher being aware of that and continuously checking to see if that red one's forward. But he was at the front of the class and he could in fact, my daughter did this in high school as well. And she could do it and just, but it does rely on the teacher seeing it. Because if the child doesn't want to express it or can't, not so much doesn't want to, but can't feel they can't communicate that verbally, if they do a non-verbal motion, it's, a lot of kids don't want to go, miss, and put their hand up and interrupt the lesson because they feel they're going to get in trouble for that. And it's hard. But I do think you've done the right thing. The one thing parents need to do is advocate. And so going onto the council website and downloading this one plan and taking it into them is absolutely their school's worst nightmare, but everything that a parent needs to do. And I think they rely a lot on parents not knowing the information, not knowing you can apply for an EHC yourself, that you can access funding, that you can get, you can request them to be on the SCM register. They rely on you not knowing that. And it's about informing yourself and advocating for your children, because they're not going to do it. They've got 500 other children.
Yeah, I think that was one of the hardest things for me at the beginning, was like, I thought, oh, we've got this diagnosis. Oh, it's all going to be smooth sailing from here. And it wasn't, and it hasn't been, and it's actually really hard. And then the fact that like getting the diagnosis in the first place was hard. And then going through the application journey as well has been really difficult. And then like you said, it's they do rely on you not knowing these things, like not knowing that you can apply for your own EHCP, not knowing that you could actually come up with your own one plan and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And all I've done is I've taken this one plan and I've taken it to school and I've said, this is what I think. Let me know what you think. But the thing is, I've done the work for them. And I have a full-time job, 3 kids, a podcast, and all the other stuff that I'm doing as well. Yeah. And somehow I've managed to find the time to do it.
You can do it. Yeah.
Whereas it's someone's job at the school. And that's what's so frustrating, is like, these people are meant to be on the sides of your child. They got the degree. They, they work in a school environment where they're there to help children, and yet it's the last thing they want to do is to do this thing to help. It
feels like sometimes they're so wrapped up in the bureaucracy of it all, and the funding and the council and the numbers and the ratings, that they forget at the end of the day there are children here that need support, and they should be the priority. However that looks on the numbers, however the SATs results come out, it doesn't matter, as long as the children are happy and healthy and supported to move on to do their very best that they can do. And it's very frustrating.
That was literally the way we ended up putting it to them, was, if you think that she's doing well, meeting the bare minimum at the moment with her, they were like, oh, well, part of the reason we don't think she needs a one plan is because she's meeting her academic goals. And it's like, okay, well, she is at school, but she's really struggling with homework at home. And one of their solutions was just not to do homework. They mark this homework in class as a group. And she doesn't want to not do the homework.
To be the only one. Yeah.
And so I'm like, right, okay, well, that's not an option. She wants to do the homework, is just getting into it to do it, she's struggling with. Oh, okay. Well, blah, 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 this, that, and the other. And it's like, right, again, still not 100% helpful, but whatever, So we've had to do these things at home and implement these things at home to try and help her to be in line with everyone else. And although she's meeting her academic goals, which is great, that's not the point. One of the things we said to them was, imagine how much further along she'd be if you gave her the tools to regulate herself properly at school.
This is always my point.
At home, she'd go to bed at a reasonable time. She wouldn't be sitting there worried the night before about going to school. She'd be although she might be out of the classroom for 5 minutes taking a brain break, at least when she gets back she can sit down, look at it with fresh
settled
eyes.
And rested. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And then you could slowly hear the cogs turning.
Yeah.
But
Imagine
exactly
if she
point.
was her best self. What could she achieve in life if she was fully supported in her best self? We ended up having to do this because one of the arguments they use to refuse an EHC is that they are academically coping.
Yeah.
And it's not a legal argument. They're not meant to use it, but that's what they do. And so we ended up sending my son's reports all through the years because we didn't get him moved to a specialist till year 5.
Yeah.
And his early years, he was always exceeding. He's a very bright boy. He was always exceeding. And then he went down to meeting in that key stage 1. And then into key stage 2, he started going to the emerging.
Yeah.
And we were like, look, when this child is fully thriving, he can exceed expectations.
Yeah.
And you're telling me he's okay just at emerging because he's not behind fully. And he's moved to this specialist school. And like I said before, he's absolutely smashing it, doing well because he's in a class of 8 and all his needs are supported. And we've actually had his EHC review last week. And one of the things we mentioned is that because they have a teacher and 2 TAs, and the TAs go with them to every lesson, and then they move up through the years with them, having this one particular TA called Chloe know him so well that when he's about to go in meltdown, or when he's struggling, or when he needs to go for a little walk, she can see it in him and go to him, take him out and have that air and come back with him.
Yeah.
What a difference that makes. Just
Yeah.
having somebody in that class that he trusts to know him that well. And I said, you know, on your EHC review, you have to say what's going well and what's not going well. I was like, this, have Chloe, keep her forever. Don't ever let her leave. Because it's brilliant.
It's amazing
yeah.
though, like the changes you see in your child when they are, like you said, being fully supported, and when they're receiving the things that they need. And you know, although like some schools are brilliant, and or you're able to then get them moved to like a specialist school where they can be supported that way, you know, as you and I both know, there's some parents out there who are raw dogging this thing and doing it all on their own and going through their own neurodiverse challenges without any form of without any form of recognition, like myself, not being diagnosed, but still trying to implement things that I've learned to help me cope with
and you've learned that because you're proactive, whereas there are, I'm guessing, because there is a genetic link with neurodiversities, there are probably hundreds of thousands of parents out there who do have struggles but haven't put it together that it could be that they are also neurodiverse. And so they're trying to just get through the day and feeling overwhelmed and not quite sure why, while dealing with a child with neurodiversities and a system that is built solely against us, that, you know, they're not getting the support they need.
And it's a real struggle. And the thing is that having resources like yours with easy to navigate chapters where you don't have to read the whole book, you know, where you can dip in and out and reread things when things are getting tough in a certain area, and being able to really look through this and you know, find the answers that you're looking for is just incredible. And honestly, Eve, it's really helped me already. And I think like the just general lack of support out there from, you know, from the council, from the education providers as well, is so difficult. But having resources like this is just so important. Being able to go out there and find people like you who are trying to help, trying to break it down and make it easier, and just honestly, like being able to just go through this and go, right, okay, I'm having a real struggle with bedtimes, what do I do? And seeing, you know, seeing your advice, but like you know,
But-
like you said, you mentioned the things that worked and also the things that you tried that didn't. Because the thing is, like we were saying at the beginning, things that work for one child aren't going to work for the other, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And so although they
And
might
it's
not
trial
work
and
for your
error.
child,
Yeah.
and even though they might
Yeah.
not work for one of your children, they still might work for someone else's. And so by mentioning
Exactly.
all of the things, it's helpful.
Even the ones that went wrong.
Yeah, but it is,
Yeah, and
it's just such a trial and error sort of scenario. It's difficult as it is, but we'll get there in the end. And knowing that there's other people out there like yourself who've gone through it, are going through it, and are coming out the other end with children who are supported and happy, and parents who feel less stressed and and like they're getting somewhere
on days.
Is
I currently have one
is
upstairs
helpful.
that refused to go to school this morning. So after we're off this, I then have to go and try and get to school.
Yeah. But I know it's a struggle, and I appreciate that not every day is a good day, but the fact that you're trying to help other people navigate the not every
I
day
think
is a
that's
good
why I
day.
wanted to do the chapters in the way I did, because you kind of start off in the morning, and hopefully it kind of goes through the day as a person would go through the day, you know, self-care, getting dressed, going to school, eating, all that, and then bedtime at the end. Hopefully you can just sort of go, right, this is near the beginning, so I'll find it up here somewhere, you know, this is waking up, you know, and so it is that dip in, dip out kind of thing. I really wanted to make it into a ebook. What's it called? The audio book. Yeah, so the publishers are looking into it, because I said parents are busy, but they could have it on in the car, you know, or the headphones. It'd be easy to do it that way. So we're trying to find the most accessible ways, knowing the parents that we have that are going to be using this are already overwhelmed and don't have time to sit down and read a full book. We recently had the book launch for it, and for that, you know, we looked at Waterstones or fancy coffee shops and things like that, typical places you'd have a book launch. And in the end, we ended up at a multi-sensory disability play centre for the book launch, because I knew all the people that wanted to come had children who had neurodiverse needs, which is exactly why they're coming. And so we needed a safe space for them all to go in and play, and know that the parents could then chat amongst themselves, because so much support you will find from other parents and chatting. And the children were all fully safe in there, and it was probably the only book launch that has ever been done in a play centre. But it was wonderful, and they fully booked it out for us, and shout out to Boomerang. They were brilliant.
Oh no, it looked, I saw the photos and like the little clips and everything as well, and it looked brilliant. And honestly, I would fully recommend this book. And if you go to your local bookshop and they don't have it, I'll make sure that the ISBN numbers put in the show notes as well, because you can quote an ISBN number and they can look it up and order it from the publishers as well.
It has been sent out to most bookshops across the country, Smiths, Waterstones, those kind of places.
Amazing.
So you can just ask for it. They may not have a copy in store, but just ask for it, and it's on Amazon.
Fantastic. I'll also put it up in the resources section on my website as well. So if you are listening and you are interested in grabbing a copy, head over to the resource section on my website, and you'll be able to find the link and click it there. You can navigate through the resources section by the name of the guest that I've had on, and in this case it will be Eve, so just search Eve and you'll find her there. But thank you so much for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on and to talk about the book. I feel like we could talk forever. But I look forward to speaking to you again. Hopefully you'll come back on and join me another time.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
If you enjoyed this episode of Mum's Work and Chaos, please make sure to subscribe on whatever podcasting channel you're listening on at the moment. Or if you'd like to get involved, feel free to email me at mumsworkandchaos@gmail.com, or follow us on Instagram at mumsworkandchaos. See you then.